Okay, so I just thought I'd make another video specifically about the 71 more than the 72 and to answer some of Chris Parker's questions that he's asked. Um, so I suppose, really, there is a bit of backstory to this. It's not particularly fascinating, but there is a bit of backstory. So I obviously owned the 72 for a long time and I played it exclusively. And obviously, there were occasions where I would break a string. And I'm actually trying to think back to what I did in those scenarios. I mean, I did obviously have other guitars. I had the custom built ones that I've got, the Richardson ones, which I can show at some point as well. Actually, that's an interesting idea. So whenever I broke a string on this, I would have to obviously wait for the string to be replaced, and in the meantime, I'd have to play one of the Richardsons, which I like the guitars, but they do have a very specific sound. And I mean, I just became almost obsessed with that 72, really, and I wasn't interested in playing anything else, especially live. Now, in the studio, I mean, that's a whole different story, really, sort of making the albums and writing in the studio. I mean, recording rather, and what guitars I used. But live, because I'll get distracted now, but I kind of have always approached those things slightly differently, to be honest, which maybe in retrospect I shouldn't have done, but I always did. I always approached the studio in a much more controlled, experimental way, whereas live, I loved doing it a different way, really. This guitar, a certain amp, although I did go through various different amps, but it was always rooted around the sound of this guitar. Or the Deluxe, not necessarily this 71, but the Deluxe. So let's talk a little bit about that. So, um, I'm trying to remember what exactly I was using in the very early, So for example, when we went down to Townhouse to record the first EP, what did I take down there? Sorry, I'm thinking on my feet here. But anyway, so when I discovered this guitar, I fell in love with the sound of it primarily because of these things, these mini humbucker pickups. Now, so normal humbucker pickups, compared to these, they're a lot thicker sounding. It's certainly to my ears, a lot thicker and a lot woollier sounding. They sound quite woolly to the full-on humbuckers, or they can do anyway. Now, I always found that woolly tones got lost amongst Stu's sort of frequencies and things like that. So what I found was the mini humbuckers on these Deluxes, they're brighter and they cut through more. So, I mean, obviously not quite like a Strat because single coils cut like knives, but these things for humbuckers, I mean, I don't know why I'm no expert on how they work. I mean, I know they're smaller, more condensed, I suppose, I'm not sure. But anyway, they just have a tone which suited our music better to my ears. And again, with this one, the neck profile, the fretboard, I mean, the Deluxe, the 71 and the 72, they have differences, but they both have a very slick sort of playing action to them. That doesn't really make much sense because you can set an action out you want. But anyway, they both play fantastically. Now let's see if I can get back on track. That's well. Another thing I forgot to say, really, I suppose, in the previous video was about the pickguard, scratch plate, whatever you want to call it. Now, it's always been a bit of a problem with Gibsons in the, well, I say it's a problem, but once that comes off, you do have obviously the holes for the screws for the pickguard, but I just prefer the look of these instruments without the pickguard. Now, it's interesting, really, because I think that applies more for me specifically to gold tops. Now, for example, if you had, excuse me, let me get a drink. If you had a proper original 59 in Sunburst, it wouldn't look right to me without a pickguard. It's weird. Something about the look of the colour and how the colour. I guess maybe Well, I don't know, because I mean, a lot of the time you have some really nice figuring on sunburst models, whereas obviously you don't really. It's not a translucent finish, isn't the gold top? It's a solid finish, so you don't really have any of the nice wood figuring coming through. Whereas on the, as I say, the sunburst ones and the other burst colours, the Gibsons, a lot of the time you can really see the wood grain, and it does look fantastic. But either way, to my eyes, they always need a pickguard. Gold tops, I don't think they look right to me without with the pickguard on. Don't know why. It's something to do. I wonder if, to my eyes, it's the pickups. I wonder if the pickups don't look right with the pickguard, whereas when it's full-sized humbuckers, that suits the pickguard more. They look very different to my eyes, anyway. So let's see if I can get back on track. Let's just see if there's anything else unique I can say about this one, or if we can see the effects to the finish a bit more in this light. Which I think we can. Yeah, I mean, as I say, this line here isn't great. But it's not, it's not damage. It is finish checking. I don't know that, the only reason it's not great is because it goes against everything else. I really like these lines. I don't know if you can pick up in this light just how metallic this finish is. This one is super metallic. And what I like about this one as well is, again, I don't know if we're going to be able to see, but it's much lighter around here. I mean, obviously, because the pickguard will have been on this for, well, I took it off. So this is a 71, so it'll have been on, I guess, the whole time until I took it off. And I do have that. I do have the pickguard somewhere. So, but it's not like a perfect outline of a pickguard, but it's a lighter hue around there, which is, I kind of like. It looks nice. But yeah, these are obviously original tone pots. Can't remember the style that you call these, but they are very nice. Obviously on the other ones, like for example on like a black Les Paul standard, they have there's almost like a solid shaped glass one out. This almost like see-through. I can't remember what you call them anyway, but as I say, I'm no expert. The writing's actually quite different on this one as well. How Gibson is, it's much more sort of pearly on this one. I don't have the 72 in the room at the moment, but it's dusty as well. But yeah, this is sort of a much more bright pearly sort of colour, whereas on the 72, it's faded. Maybe it was like that at one stage. But as I say, the thing with the 72, and this took, well, no, not this one, because this hasn't, I mean, I've played this a lot on stage, don't get me wrong, but nowhere near as much as that other one. I couldn't tell you how many gigs, well, every gig we ever played, I played with that 72. So God knows how many gigs we've played, I've no idea. But I did a lot with that guitar. So basically the point is, and anyone who's seen us play or seen me play or whatever, like, our music's frantic. There's always you lot going nuts. So you sweat a lot. You sweat a hell of a lot. Excuse me. So because of that, the guitars end up absolutely drenched. There's some points where I thought, oh God, am I going to get electrocuted off this? Because it does just literally pour off me. Excuse me, sorry. This always happens whenever I film. Very frustrating. Anyway, yeah, the sweat sort of pours off and it just covers the guitar. Absolutely covers it. I mean, as I said in tweets before, you could have wrung these things out. Again, not specifically this one, more the other one. But you could have wrung it out after a gig. It was that soaked, absolutely drenched. And I don't know, I guess wood will absorb that and dry out and absorb it and dry out, night after night after night. It's a lot for a finish to try and actually stay together in that kind of abuse. But this one has stayed together, so not too bad. Right, let's see if I can actually get onto why I was making this video in the first place and not going off on a mad tangent. So, let's cut to the chase now. I've waffled enough. This was a spare. So as I said right at the beginning, often I'd break strings and I'd be annoyed I had to wait for the 72 to be restrung before I could carry on playing it on stage. So all the time, well, once I really sort of built that relationship with the the Deluxe. Obviously, it was probably Mick Quinn at the time. Was obviously saying, we need to find a spare. We need to find one so that if you do break a string on stage, or if God forbid something else happens, you do have another one that you want to play, because that's an important thing. You've got to want to play the thing. It's not worse than, I mean, again, cutting into it, but when Mick Quinn did forget my guitar in Switzerland, I had to play an SG that I had. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind SGs, but it's not the same. And I just had a horrible gig because it just didn't sound right. But anyway, that's gone on off on a tangent. So yeah, so for a long time, me and Mick, if we were in cities, would obviously we'd go to find a guitar shop and see what they had. A lot of the time, with no results. But that was sort of one of my favourite things about America. Was there was a lot of places that had, well, any vintage guitar shop you go in would have a selection of Les Pauls, obviously being as popular as they were, although not so much this one. But being as popular as they were, you could pick these up all over the place. And from memory, I think I did see a couple, and sometimes they weren't gold tops, but I was open to anything really, because it was more the pickups that I liked. Did find a couple, but none that I really connected with. Now, anyway, I found this one. So the 71, I found this one in Chicago. Chicago, what's it called now? Oh, God. Guitar Exchange? Chicago Music Exchange? Chicago Guitar Exchange? Can't remember. They gave me a really cool t-shirt as well. So yeah, we were playing in Chicago, and we played in Chicago quite a few times at quite a few different venues. So actually pinpointing when exactly I bought this is difficult, because I can remember a few separate occasions being in Chicago and going to the same shop just to see what they had in. And I think I bought 2 different guitars on 2 different occasions there, I think. Unless it was all the same time. As I say, it's a little bit muddled as this memory for me. So being in Chicago, me and Mick went to this shop and found this. And as I say, all the while I'd been looking for a good spare for my 72 and not found one. Found this and thought, yeah, that'll do. I don't think I connected with it quite in the same way that I did the 72. But as I said, the love note on the back of that played a big part in that. But I knew that this would do perfectly as a spare in the scenario where I did break a string. Now, don't get me wrong, I suppose it's quite an expensive spare. I mean, the first one, I think, as I say, I paid $1,500 for. This one, I think, was $2,300. So, without remembering the year I bought it exactly, it's difficult to know what that will have equated to in pounds. But I would imagine it wasn't far off that. Sorry. My throat always goes dry as soon as I start recording. It's really annoying. So, yeah. So, as I say, it had a different tone. It was instantly brighter, felt lighter, all these sorts of things. But that was by the by, really. It did the job, and it put my mind at rest, knowing that I had this, and I was more than happy to play this if something happened to the other one. So there's quite an interesting story behind the day I bought it, or the day I bought one of them. As I say, I went to this shop a few times, I'm sure I did. One time I bought this, and another time I bought a 1952 Martin 0018 acoustic, which I've still got. So one of the times I went, I think it was because we played with Kasabian in Chicago, and I'm sure, well, we definitely went to the shop with Kasabian, but I don't think I bought this then. I think I bought this the year before we played Chicago with Kasabian, either on our own tour. It must have been on our own tour. So yeah, I think I bought that then, and there was nothing particularly exciting about me buying that. But I suppose what's quite interesting is the next year we played with Kasabian, and we were there again. So I went back to this shop because I knew it was a bit of a treasure trove of all sorts. And as I say, I fell in love with that Martin. So I bought that Martin 0018, and that was cheap. I think that was like $600, which for an instrument, a 1952, vintage instrument, is incredible, really. but it had a neck restoration at some point because it had been broken, so that will have obviously affected the price massively, but it did not affect how it plays or staying in tune. You know, it must have been a master builder who mended that. So that day we played with Kasabian, I bought that acoustic. Yeah, it's coming back to me now, I remember. I bought that acoustic. I remember because the day I bought it, that's right, yeah. The day I bought the Martin acoustic, all right, well, I'll get to that, otherwise I'm going to get confused again. Right. Went and bought the Martin, went back to the venue, at which point I showed it to Kasabian lads and said, oh, I've bought this, and Serge was interested where I got it. So I said, oh, just the shop down the road. So Serge then wanted to go, so I went back down to the shop with Serge, who wanted to buy a guitar, and what did he end up buying? Oh God, what are they called? A Fender, is it a Coronado? A Coronado, I cannot remember. One of the more limited run Fenders anyway. And if I remember right as well, he had to ring his dad and get his dad to buy it on his credit card. But I mean, you know, we were all kids at that point, so, and it was a lot of money. But I did think that was, well, I don't know. The lovely lads though, the Kasabian guys. But what was interesting about the Martin was the day I bought it, Kasabian came on our bus that night. Because obviously they had their own bus, we had our bus, but we were getting on that much that Tom and Serge, I think, Tom and Serge spent the night on our bus for a bit of a party. And obviously I'd just bought that Martin. And I put it at the back of my bunk, basically, alongside me, to keep it safe, because I didn't want it, getting damaged or whatever. So anyway, I'd gone to bed at God knows whatever time it was. At which point I'm laid in my bunk, fast asleep, and then suddenly someone's got hold of me and they're like rocking me. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what's happening here? I had earplugs in as well, because obviously the party was still going on, but I'd had it by that point. So I had earplugs in, so I'm startled awake by Tom from Kasabian shaking me, nose to nose with me in my bunk. So obviously I took my earplugs out and said, what's up? And he's like, can I borrow your guitar? And I'm like, yeah, all right, yeah. So I get out of my bunk and get this thing out and give it to him, bless him. And off he ran down the corridor into the front lounge, where God knows what time they actually went to bed. But I thought it was funny anyway, because, I'd only just got this guitar, and then I went in the front lounge and got it on the morning after, and they'd obviously been playing the heck out of it, so there were pick scratches all over it. But I have to say, I didn't mind at all. I mean, it was a 52, it's got marks, and I thought it added to, what is a really cool guitar by what happened to it, I suppose, by Tom Main from Kasabian playing the hell out of it for God knows how long in the front lounge of an American tour bus, probably going through some unique scenery. I don't know, that was that was one thing I really loved about America. Sorry, dry throat again. Lots of incredible scenery, really. Lots of really fun drives. We once did a three, well, not all of us. Who was it? I think it was me, Mick Quinn, good old Mick Quinn. I think it was Stu. Sorry. There was a choice, basically, whether we flew from, where was it now? It was somewhere to Seattle. Was it Chicago? No, I can't remember where it was. Basically, there was a choice of either doing a flight or a 3-day drive with the bus and the equipment. Now, obviously, I don't know, I despise flying. It's no secret. I absolutely despise flying. So for me, 3 days on the bus, films, whatever you want, comfy. I just thought, well, we'll do that. Instead, I'd much rather do that. So we spent 3 days going through the Rockies. In the tour bus, just me, Mick and Stu. And I think that was the same time, actually, where we needed to stop on this mountain road, and the driver missed like a little turn off for this stop. So attempted to reverse. That's right, we were in the back lounge. So this driver's attempting to reverse up this mountain icy road with obviously a huge trailer on the back full of all our equipment, and he's reversing. And whether he'd not seen or whatever, I don't know. But as he's reversing, the trailer is it jackknifed? The trailer basically had swung. It's not jackknifed. I don't know, but the trailer had swung all the way around, and the corner of the trailer effectively came through the window of the back lounge while we were sat in it. Now that was pretty scary. But anyway, I've gone severely off tangent here. So, is there anything else? Oh, Chris did ask when I bought it, but I think I've answered that. But he was linking it to me talking about fire. Now, the reason I use this one in particular on fire is because, as I say, it has got that brighter tone, and it just suits that riff more. Now, as you also say, Chris, do I specifically write on one or the other? No, I would always be writing on the 72. Like, it's only recently I've really built up a massive appreciation for this one, and I say recently as in the last few months when I've actually got back into all this. All this stuff has been locked away for 10 years, so I've not even thought about it. I mean, and before that, this was only ever a spare. But as they've come back into my life, so to speak, I'm actually really enjoying playing this one, and I enjoy the brightness of it and all those things. The other one just sat. The other one's got ridiculous sustain. Like someone said earlier, because of its weight and its mass, the sustain is ridiculous, and it's almost got like a church bell ring to it, like a tonal quality of sustain that I've never found on anything else. And as good as this sounds and as good as this plays, it doesn't quite have that same weight and same resonance. I think is possibly the way to talk about it. But this video is 20 minutes long now. I've rambled on enough. I mean, there's all sorts of things to talk about with these, so maybe I'll make another one when I remember a few more bits, or if anyone else has got any specific questions that I haven't really addressed, I'm more than willing to, well, basically keep rambling on for you if you want. Hopefully I haven't showed you too much mess in this room, but this room ain't too bad. All right, well, thank you very much for watching and listening. I really appreciate it. Bye.